All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 80. Man, we're getting old of the Dads and Ed podcast. Jeez, I can feel it in my bones. Pleased to be back tonight. Yeah. We had to go an extra week break because it was Valentine's Day and Devin's a big deal now. He had postseason basketball, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But excited to be back. Hopefully we'll be back on a regular routine now. I'm excited to have Tim Huls join us here in about 15 minutes. My name is Josh Allen, tech integrationist for the wonderful Lewis Central School District. 4 wonderful kids. Just hit double digits for the first time since our last show. So our oldest turned 10, and a beautiful wife. And pleased to be joined by...
I'm Devin Schoening. Work for the Council Bluffs Community School District in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and really happy to be on tonight. We are, I think I said this last time, entering birthday season here. Grace, my eldest, will be 14 on Monday, and then Claire turns 12 just 10 days after that. So we're getting into the season here.
2 more years, and you got a driver.
That's true. And actually, I mean, you can, 14 is the year for the permit, where you can drive with a parent. So we've driven in parking lots. Not sure she's gotten over about 12 miles an hour. But she keeps asking every time. We did drive in a cemetery once also. But yeah, so she's ready to do that. And then my great wife, Erin, is now, just getting on. She's on the mend here. She's been sick with the flu for the last 3 days or so. So it's nice. I was saying before we got on the show, it'll be my first night back in our bed tonight. I've slept on the couch, so I don't get the stinking flu. So I'm kind of looking forward to the bed tonight.
That'll be nice. If you want to connect with the show, you can tweet at us at Dads and Ed. Use the hashtag Dads and Ed at any time. If you missed part of the show, check out our website, dadsined.com. You watch the video replay there, or you can subscribe to the audio version in iTunes or Google Play. Just search Dads and Ed. Or you can check us out with a number of other fantastic podcasts at the edupodcastnetwork.com. With our water coolers, sometimes they're a little less serious than others. Tonight's a little bit more serious than what they have been. As most of you know by now, there was a school shooting down in Florida last week that took a good number of lives, and they're all extremely unfortunate. And we don't necessarily want to focus on that as much as we want to focus about the responses that students have had since then. Students, for the most part, can't vote. And obviously, unless you're 18. So saying, to vote certain people out is not necessarily an option for all of them. But many of them have used social media and different avenues to kind of get their voice out. And this water cooler, I will actually just write in, will be a good lead in for Tim here in a little bit. We'll talk with him about this as well. But kind of just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And those of you that are watching, if you want to use the hashtag Dads and Ed in your comments as well, and I will kick it over to Devin here.
Yeah, what I've been inspired by, I guess, is the response from students. I was just having a conversation with somebody on Voxer a little earlier today, and that part of it has been pretty inspiring. I think we've got students who are kind of taking the lead on that and maybe showing us how we should talk about this issue, and hearing it from their perspective has been pretty impressive. And I think more than anything, I might have tweeted this or something the other day too, is I want to support the heck out of that. How do we support that idea that students have something to say and that we should listen to them? And we don't always probably, and I'll be interested to hear, and we can get into this in a bit here about how districts and schools are planning to handle some of this, because I think I just saw earlier there was a school in Texas, or district in Texas, where I think it was the superintendent said, anybody who decides to, protest or walk out will be suspended. I mean, it's kind of like laying down the gauntlet, like, we're not having it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, because, boy, what better way to hear the thoughts of students who are highly engaged in this. It's not maybe just about getting out of school. It's about making some actual change.
Yeah, and I think sometimes districts, are just nervous as to what kids are going to say. They don't want their district to look bad when you have a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old that is out there. But I think you also see, I don't think we've had Jonathan Rogers on the show, but Jonathan's the journalism teacher at Iowa City, and he's had his students covering some of the walkouts that are on there, and they've done a great job, and have actually been picked up by local or by national media as well. And so, that school district has kind of embraced the I don't know if embrace is the right word, but has allowed the students to share their voice and share their concerns. And I think it's tough. I don't think it's about like classroom instruction time as much as it is, districts are worried what's going to happen. And is it going to go awry? And I mean, it's unfortunate all around that we're even in this position. I would throw it to you, like, if you're the principal of a high school, what do you think the message would be to your kids around that? Because I think I have a pretty good idea of what I would say, but what will be your kind of thoughts to them? I think you have to be supportive and give them an outlet or an outlet to speak. And I'll be honest, I don't know what that is. Yeah. Is it an organized walkout, kind of with a blessing? So then what do you want to accomplish by that? Like, what do you want? Is it just stating your piece, which is fine? Is there a way that we can do it? I don't know that there's a way you can do it in school. It's tough. I think you have to be supportive and give them an outlet for their voice.
Yeah. And I guess what I would hope too is that if I were in that position, that that things would have happened, right? That would have created kind of a culture at that school where students feel as though, one, they have that voice, right, and two, that they could come to you and know that you're going to give them your best faith effort to support that, right? So whereas you might not be able to directly support it and organize it, you might be able to help guide them into how they can best do this. So if that meant, they're going to have a walkout, I guess as the principal, keep me in the know. You know what I mean? Like, I might be able to give you some guidance in terms of how you can do that safely, how you can best get your message and your voice out there, so that it isn't marginalized in a way that that just looks like a walkout. So, I don't know how often that happens. I don't know how many places where that might be the prevailing thought, but I would sure hope that if I was in that position, that would be the stance that I would take.
And I would also hope that after the walkout, that we continue having conversations about how to make our schools safer, and including kids on that. Like, how can we build a culture that embraces everybody, and makes everyone feel welcome and safe? Because just simply having a walkout isn't going to prevent the next one.
Right.
You have to, build a culture. We had, so ironically enough, the county sheriff had scheduled our gym for some physical fitness training, and it happened to be the Friday after the shooting. So of course, oh my goodness, there are cops all over the high school.
Right.
And so, like, we put something on Facebook that says, hey, just so you know, it's pre-scheduled. Like, don't worry, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But of course, the conversation or the comments come in. Well, we need to have an armed guard at every school. And it's like, it's not going to prevent it. They had it they had at least two at the Stoneman, and it doesn't. That kind of stuff doesn't prevent it. It's culture. It's
Right.
building that trust.
Right.
So it's unfortunate that we're in. I was talking to a friend last night. We were headed down to a basketball game, and I mean, can you think of any school shooting before Columbine?
No.
I mean, I don't know
you're
what
right.
changed, but it's. I mean, now it's commonplace. You don't even hear about it anymore. If it wasn't
Right.
for these
And
students walking out, we would have forgotten about what happened a week ago.
yeah, and the issue, and that really is part of the issue, right? Is we've become so desensitized
Right.
to not only school shootings but just shootings in general, and that's where I'm glad. I've said it a whole bunch of times that the student voice to me is inspiring, right? I mean, hearing them speak intelligently about the experience that they had and what they would hope would happen moving forward. Having them engage with adults in these conversations, having them, push in whatever way they can, state and national legislators. I think that's important, and I just hope we continue to listen. I hope that it isn't one of those things that in a month we look back and say, yeah, maybe it lasted a little longer this time. But the conversation still ended. This one can't end. I think it needs to keep going.
No, yeah, it is good for these kids for continuing that conversation, and I think you're right. Hopefully, it continues on.
Yeah.
Brandon, Tim checking in on the YouTube chat. Excited for Mr. Huls. We are too. We'll get to him in just a second. Dad moment of the week. So we didn't. Well, maybe we need to have the Coach Schoening show before we move on. Do you want to? So you won your first round playoff game, correct?
We did.
First time in probably a decade-ish, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Most wins in school history, which I think, if I remember correctly, last show you were like one away. You got it the weekend after or something, or you had tied it or something like that. So anyway, you want to do a wrap up?
We ended up with 14 wins. Ended up 14-9 on the year. We played our last game this past Saturday. We played Southeast Polk, which is just outside of Des Moines, and had a really good team. And it's one of those things where I thought we played really hard. We ended up losing by about 20. It was kind of a 13 to 18 point game most of the way after the middle of the second quarter. But couldn't be more proud. It's a lot of fun. I've told people over and over again the last week or two that it's much better than the alternative. We've been through the alternative, and this is a lot more fun than that. So it's been great. Not only has it been fun as a team, but we've had some individual honors. We've got a sophomore girl we've got a number of good players, but a sophomore girl who's been honored as an all-district member, which for us, our district includes much of Des Moines. It's pretty much all Des Moines schools, and then a couple of Sioux City schools, and us and AL and Council Bluffs here. So it's the best players in the state, or a good chunk of the best players in the state, and so she's getting that recognition. And it's been a lot of fun. And the last thing I think I said in the locker room after our last game was, this senior class that went through, their goal coming in was to be part of the change in culture and to be part of the change in this program. And what they've essentially done for all of our younger kids is kind of laid down the gauntlet, laid down the challenge to say, this is where you need to be. And I'm hoping that our younger kids take that challenge and we keep it moving. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, so my dad moment of the week kind of spins off of that. I am my fourth grader's assistant coach. We are above 500, which is 3 more games than we won all of last year. So that's good. We don't, we know that our son, all of our kids, enjoy what they enjoy, and don't necessarily, need to excel at it. They just go out and have fun, and that's all we've asked. You got to do something. We don't really care what it is. And so my son is one of the point guards on our team, and he'll score a couple buckets every game. Well, this last weekend, he went 0 for like 15, and just like bouncing off the rim, rolling around the rim, just, everything. And we gave him such a hard time afterwards. And, he can laugh about it because he knows that's not, what he normally does. And so I just appreciate that he's out there having fun. We went to my nephew's game right after Maddox's game, and we're telling my nephew, don't take notes from Maddox because he had watched his game. Like, don't do that. Like, put it in the bucket. It's got to go in for it to count. You can't rolling around the top.
Right.
Doesn't happen. So I appreciate that he can kind of take it all in stride and joke about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there should be a rule change that if it rolls around the rim, it should be, a point or something, or half a point, or
you should get just half a point. Yeah, I mean, if you touch every single part of the rim, I mean, that's good. That's not
pretty good. Yeah. I've talked before about how much I do love coaching, and I love that my kids can be around. But the nice thing about it being done, even though we weren't ready to kind of be done with the season, is it allows me to get back and be more present in their lives too. So it's been nice in the last week. I've also gone to a choir concert for Claire and a show choir for Grace, and we've got Claire's in a play this weekend. And so it's nice to be able to be back and fully present with my family, and not just getting there when I can. And they know that, my family is invested in my team, my girls' team, as anybody. So it's been a great season, but it's been really nice to kind of get back and be perfectly present in my family as well now.
Yeah, we joke about how much we like to do all these extra things, and then when it's done, it's kind of like, all right, it's nice to step back a little bit, but
yes,
yeah, it's hard to keep that balance.
Absolutely.
Brandon, Tim, checking back in on the YouTube chat. Very interesting to see administrators that say they are empowering students, but really just want to control students. And I think he's right. There's a fine line that some try to say, this is what we're going to do, but it's not like truly letting students kind of do what it is that they need to do to have their voice heard.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I think he's right. It's hard, I think, in a school to not take especially as a principal or as an administrator, take the position of controlling that message versus supporting and helping hone that message, and that's tough.
Well, I mean, I even see it. This is a lot less serious thing, but we were talking about breakouts, breakout EDU before we got on the show, and the last 2 days we've been doing one that we wrote that is pretty hard. It's a 4th grade math and Division I, and I've had the same sub for 2 days for 2 different classes, and she's a retired teacher, and it's pretty funny because she is struggling with letting kids kind of do their own thing.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's the same. Again, on a lot less serious note,
right.
But it's kind of the same thing. Like letting kids go and letting kids kind of do their own thing. But
absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it comes to that part of the show where we get a little bit smarter because we have a guest here. Tonight, we're pleased to be joined by Tim Huls. Tim is the high school principal, AD, and probably a bazillion other things at Hampton Public Schools, co-founder of the Edgy EDU podcast. Tim's appearance is sponsored by the Antiques Roadshow on PBS. When the Dads and Ed hosts need to figure out what this old stuff is in their house, they take it to the Antiques Roadshow. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
Not too shabby.
Hey, first, Josh, I know I met you in person first at York MLK Day. I think that was about a month ago.
Yeah.
Devin, we have not formally met or have been introduced, but first I want to congratulate you on your successes and sticking with the grind.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Listening on the last couple of podcasts, it's awesome to hear that. And it's cool that, you want to focus on the process because it's not always about the results. It's about sticking with it.
And that's true. And, I like I've said, as a program, at points over the last 8, 9, 10 years. So this was a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome.
Tim, we were just talking before you came on about the schools allowing students to have a response to this shooting last week in Florida. Have you guys had conversations about how you would handle that? Or, maybe that gets to the generic, you guys have been, one of the leaders, in the area with letting students kind of tell your story. But have you guys had conversations about what you would do if you had students that wanted to speak up about this or really any subject?
In regards to the shootings, no, we have not. I mean, we know that our students are aware of it.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that, if kids want to talk, we'll let them talk. And that's the advantage of a small school.
Yeah.
They feel more apt to come in and chat about it. And I wouldn't be surprised in classrooms. I mean, I would almost, say yes, probably in the classrooms, they did have opportunities to talk about it. But as far as bringing a whole group together and chatting about it, no, we're in a small enough school where, it is the whole group is a small group. And they can all chat at the lunch table, in the lunchroom. I mean, conversations like that go on. But I guarantee in the classroom, they probably had some good conversations. And you said in regards to like anything else, I'll bring up an example. We had a situation that just happened yesterday. Some kids, our choir was asked to perform for an organization, and our kids have been gone for so many things because our kids are involved in anything in a small school and everything. And I kind of put a nix to it, and I said, we've been gone quite a bit. I'm just going to pass on this one. And that was just communication with the teacher. And what was really cool, and I embraced it and I love it, the 5 seniors that were in choir within 10 minutes came to my office and said, "Hey, can we talk about this?" And, yeah, let's go. Let's sit down. And, and they brought it to my attention that they would really like to go. And I said, "Hey, I understand what we want to do. And this is my thought process. I know you might disagree with it, but thank you for coming in and having that confidence to come and chat with me. And I really appreciate that." And I heard what you guys were talking about before, that either giving the kids of Brandon, Tim. Hi, Brandon. I hope you're still watching. I miss seeing you every day, buddy. It was great working with you. He, mentioning that giving the kids the voice, but possibly wanting to control them. I totally get that. So it's kind of humbling when kids feel comfortable coming up to you and asking to want to talk some things through. And just 3 months ago, we had Mike Smith chime in through Google Hangout with our seniors about that same thing, about just, guys, you have to go out and you have to do, and you have to network. And that's all part of those soft skills that I was pretty proud of those seniors coming in and talk to me about it.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something we were talking a little bit about before you came on, was that idea of like, how do you handle, moments like this? And you've got kids that, depending on your size of school and where you're at and all that, thinking about things like walkouts and sit-ins and ways of protest. And I think that's one of the things I said, is that I would hope that in a place, a leader has created a culture that kids do feel comfortable coming to you. And so I think that's a real testament. And I'm curious, like, how do you do that? So being the principal in that building, how, is there something that you can do that makes those kids feel like, we can go talk to the principal about this and it's going to be okay. Even if he doesn't let us do it, we can have that conversation.
Yeah, that's a good question. Number one, it's all about building relationships in the first place. But as far as creating the culture, Devin, that's the $1 million question. And what I'll encourage, and this is a little plug in for Craig and I's Edgy EDU podcast, the conversation we had with Mike Smith. And if you're not following Mike Smith, if you don't know who Mike Smith is, the man is basically a professional teenager, is what he calls himself.
Yes.
But the conversation that we had with him, and he is spot on, because we brought that up. And he says, it's not a teacher, it's not a coach, it's not an administrator that creates the culture. It's 5 to 10 kids that really create the culture. And whether that's a positive culture or a negative culture, that's what sets the culture. And I guess it's a testament, to the kids that I have an opportunity to serve. And, you know, let's, you know, face it, you know, we all have the cream of the crop. We all have knuckleheads and we have the ones in between too. But it's just a testament of that those kids have created a culture where, you know, they can do that and they feel comfortable in doing that.
Yeah, I think, did we mention Mike Smith last week or last time?
I think so. Yeah.
I think Kat brought him up after you guys had all hung out there in Lincoln.
Yeah,
I guess
Kat was in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Mike Smith Live on Twitter, if you want to go follow him. You brought up the Edgy EDU podcast, which is something that we wanted to bring up. We've had Craig on the show before. Talk about where that came from and kind of where you see it going. You know, like us, surprisingly, we've gotten some big guests on like in the first year, and you guys have done exactly the same. So talk a little bit about how that started and where it's going.
Sure. First, you know, shout out to Craig. You guys know Craig. You know, Craig's a rock star, and I had an opportunity to work with him for 4 years at a district that he is currently at right now. And again, I miss seeing him every day. But what was really kind of a side note, Craig and I's relationship, professionally and personally, I think grew stronger. You know, after I moved off of that district, we were just able to have those more personal conversations rather than just professional conversations. But I mean, the Edgy EDU podcast is in its infancy. It's nothing like you guys are rocking it and crushing it. We're nowhere near, you know, the impact that you guys are making, you know, compared to numbers. But Taylor Siebert, a shout out to Taylor Siebert as well. We were at a Grand Island public school in service. I kind of snuck in the back door. I had the opportunity all within 2 days to listen to Matt Miller, Ditch That Textbook. Another good follow. By the way, I'm throwing a lot of names out there, and I don't know if you can tag them afterwards. But Matt Miller, I think I saw on a Friday, which was awesome. And then a Saturday, Gish, Grand Island Senior High here in central Nebraska, had George Koros. And he's another guy who's crushing it too. So we were all together and we went out for lunch, and Craig and I were kind of being sarcastic and serious with like we always are. I mean, we're 40 some odd year old guys going on 16. And Taylor was listening to us and he said, you know, you guys got to throw this down and record it. And I think people might be interested in what you guys are saying. Craig and I looked at each other and said, people don't want to listen to us, but it was totally out of our comfort zone. We did it, and we thought we were going to be edgy. That's why we were calling it Edgy EDU. And we came across Don Wettrick. There's another name I'm throwing out there. If Don Wettrick takes edgy to another stratosphere, you need to follow Don Wettrick and what he's doing. And Craig and I are like, do we give up? Because with what we're trying to do, Don Wettrick is doing it. We stuck with it, and we've had Dr. Tim Elmore, the Habitudes. He was a great conversation. Of course, Mike Smith was a great conversation. The XQ Project, are you guys familiar with the XQ Project? If not, Google it. We had a gentleman from Massachusetts who was granted some grant money from the XQ Project to start his own school, and had a great conversation with him. But the whole process of it was, you know, we need to see changes in education, and you guys have talked about it before too. And that's what we wanted to encourage conversation on changing education. And we haven't recorded in a while, but we're still going to try.
Hey, trust us. The whole like extended breaks, they work fine. It's okay. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. We're well versed in that. And I think, you know, you bring up another point about just podcasting in general. The nice thing is it really doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, we do pay for our, you know, hosting and stuff like that, as I'm sure you guys do, or you will have to here pretty soon. But I mean, other than that, it's just the time and it's the conversations. Like we've said, you know, Devin and I and Brent, when he was here, love just to hang out and talk. And so if that's all that happened and nobody watched, that's fine. And I would assume it's the same thing with you and Craig. You're really just taking those conversations and putting a microphone in front of you. Yeah,
it's the professional individual growth from that is just a reflection, and learning from each other. It's amazing, and you guys know that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Devin. Sorry. Devin.
Oh, okay. Somebody froze. I was wondering where everybody went.
I think it was you because Tim was still moving.
It might have been me. I have no idea. All I know is that nothing happened. Then I came back and you two were just looking at me. So I figured it was probably on my end.
See, Tim, we're 80 shows in and this crap still happens.
And that's what I want to say, and not to belabor this point about the podcast, because we do have a couple other things we want to talk about, but that idea of just talking to people too, in our whatever this is, 80th show, something like that, all the people that we've been able to just chat with and create those connections with and talk to. And it's kind of like you, Tim. We've never met, but this is a good opportunity for me to meet somebody else. It really has nothing to do with any of the listeners or followers, any of that stuff. So moving off of that a little bit, we see the Royals hat on there. We like to talk sports on this show. Brent was our resident Kansas City guy. But yeah, talk a little bit about your Royals fandom.
That's not going to take very long, but first a shout out to Kat. Kat, you're awesome, and I'm sure if he's not, chiming in right now, eventually, I'm sure he'll keep up to date with what you guys are doing. But want to say hi to Kat. Kat's great. But as far as the Royals, ever since I was a little kid, no, I was not a bandwagon. I did not jump on the bandwagon, in 14 and 15. I felt their pains for 30 some odd years, and I remember going to Kauffman Stadium, where you didn't need to have a ticket in hand. They were almost paying you to go into the stadium. So I was fortunate enough to catch one of the playoff games when they were playing the Angels. And as corny as it may sound, after the game, I was crying just because it was really cool. But they're not going to be very good this year, but it really doesn't matter. I like, you think of sports, and I have coached track, football, basketball, and I coached Little League T-ball, which was great in college, but I love the pace of baseball, because if you think of our jobs, guys, we're go, 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 go. And we're being stretched in all sorts of directions. And what I like about baseball is you can either sit down in front of the TV, and if you fall asleep, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if you're watching it live, you sometimes just become people watchers rather than the game, and just relax. And there's no time limit. If the game's going to last 3 hours, it lasts 3 hours, and there's no rush. There's no hurry. I love that.
And see, I guess I would say that with the I love that about baseball too. And it's one of those probably few sports that I enjoy listening to also. Right. So, I get the TuneIn app and try and listen to a lot of baseball in the summertime. But with the rule changes, I don't know that I love trying to pick up the pace.
Yeah.
Really trying to, I think it changes that. They're trying to change, I know, to kind of get after a society that doesn't seem to have the focus it takes to watch baseball. But I don't know that I love those changes.
Yeah, it's different. And I know they're somewhat loose on those, but I think it has picked the game up a little bit, but it's still, the fact that there's no time limit is great.
Yeah, I've always laughed when they talked about how they saved 5 minutes per game. It's like, so what?
Yeah.
Like, is that really really going to make your day?
Right.
Hey, we want to talk a little bit about your kids too. You have, we were talking the other day. You've got 4 kids, and one of the things I really appreciated the other day, you had posted on Instagram just about helping your kids discover their passions. And I think that's something that, my wife and I have already kind of talked. Our oldest is 10. Talked about, just giving him opportunities to see what he's interested in. And we talk about that in schools a little bit, but talk about what that looks like kind of in your house with your different kids.
Before I talk about the kids, I got to talk about my wife.
Good man.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. She's the rock, for sure. And right now I'm probably failing as a dad, because today was a crazy day. This week was kind of crazy already. I probably have seen my kids a total of 10 minutes. And she shot me a text tonight saying, hey, Isaac, who is our second oldest son, who is 13, had an appointment with his braces and said, hey, we have an emergency appointment, so we have to head, out of town, but I'm going to drop the kids off at 8. I had parent-teacher conferences until 7:30, but didn't get home till about 8:15. And she said, be sure the girls are in bed by 8 o'clock. Well, what time is it right now? It's 9:05, and I just heard him scurry up the stairs about 10 minutes ago. So right now I'm kind of failing as a dad, but going back, to my wife, Rebecca, who teaches Spanish at Aurora Public Schools. Wow. I mean, she keeps the family together, and she's super mom. So I couldn't do what I'm doing without her. And let's face it, guys, being a dad and being a husband, it's not always easy. They say sometimes it's the hardest job that you'll ever love. And there are some times where it's hard to love it. But it's there, and you have to embrace the process, right, Devin? Just like with basketball. Yep. And we work well together, because the days where I don't have any patience when I come home with the kids because I've exhausted all my patience at work, Rebecca has the patience. And so we complement each other well, because the days where she doesn't have patience, I do. So first, I love you, Rebecca. I doubt if she'll watch this. She's not into podcasts, but maybe she'll stumble upon it when we're old and wrinkled and say, wow, thanks for saying that.
Well, our wives don't watch it either, so don't worry about it.
But as far as kids, we have a 16-year-old son who we love to death. And he, I'll tell you a story about him with sports. But 16-year-old son, Noah, 13-year-old Isaac, 12-year-old Amelia, and 8-year-old Madeline. So we got the whole spectrum there. So, but as far as finding their passions, Josh, that was the question. And I know I'm kind of stumbling on this and adding things. And I know you guys don't want this podcast to last 3 hours. So going back to the sports thing, my job when I was at Aurora was activities director. And I was at the Aurora district for 14 years. I taught there for 7 years. And then they were stupid enough to hire me as an activities director. And I was there for 7. And that's when our family was just starting to grow. And Noah was in 4th grade, I believe. And I was helping coach youth basketball. And he was just getting started in basketball and not aggressive. And I was totally cool with it. And that year went by, and we asked if he wanted to do it again. And granted, you have to realize that my job as an activities director, I mean, I would go to work and my kids would be asleep. I would come home from work and my kids were asleep. Wednesdays were church days, where I was home, but they went to church activities and I get to see them, and Sunday. So anyway, we asked Noah if he wanted to do basketball again. And he said, no, I don't like sports. And I said, why don't you like sports? And he said, sports takes you away from me. Wow. Talk about a 2x4 across the head. And I said to him, that you can go with me to these things that I have to be at. And he goes, why would I want to do that when I don't like watching it? So, wow. So, we are parents that are not going to push anything upon our kids, and we want them to find their own passion. And you guys may have seen the Instagram post. I do a lot of Instagram posts, with my kids, and we live out in the country, and we have a few barns, and they claimed an old hog shed as one of their, the boys have claimed an old hog shed as their shop. And the things they do in there is amazing. And we kind of stay out of the way and let them do their thing. And they have rebuilt, growing in chronological order. I think it started with bicycles, which led to antique lawn tractors, which led to the real deal antique on antique tractors. And now it's on to antique cars. I don't know I know how to change oil. I know how to turn a wrench, but here's where they learned it. And this could go on to another conversation, YouTube. So they hop on YouTube, and that's where they're learning this stuff. And how we support it, it's a challenge because sometimes it's a money thing because they want to order all these parts and we have to give them the money lesson and they not necessarily agree with that. But if there is an auction or something going on, we would take them to an auction. Of course, Noah being 16 now, he tends to find those auctions on his own and goes. So we support the boys in that way. And I'm kind of rambling. So if you guys want to interject, go ahead.
No, you're
fine. The girls, on the other hand, they're totally opposites. Our daughter Amelia, who is 12, loves horses. So she is a caretaker for our horse, and she has gained a lot of confidence there. And it's fun watching her grow with her confidence just with taking care of the horse, taking her to little low-key rodeos where she can kind of perform, which has been a lot of fun. And then Madeline, our youngest, who is 8, wow, she's on YouTube all the time. And you think about technology, which you guys have probably discussed. I mean, they don't watch TV anymore. They're on YouTube, and she's learning cartwheels and round offs and cheers and stuff like that. So it's crazy busy, and and we'll support whatever they want to do as long as it's positive.
Before I let Devin ask the last question, hold on just a sec. Brandon Tim chiming in again via the YouTube chat. Mrs. Huls is an amazing educator, so he's helping you out there. Does some awesome things for students there, and a good role model for him, which is high praise from Brandon, of course.
Yep, thanks, Brandon.
He said his wife was one of her students,
and
one of your students. One of your students. Wow, that'll age you a little bit. Sorry about that.
No.
And he had Noah, so give him a shout out there. So go ahead, Devin.
No, I think it's a quick follow-up, actually, Tim, to what you were just talking about. One of the things that the reason that we even started this podcast was aside from just wanting to hang out and have a good time and laugh, was really looking at that intersection of being a parent and being an educator, and how each kind of impacts the other. So we've talked about how, being a teacher or being an educator impacted me as a parent in a certain way. Can you talk about that at all, about how either one of those roles has impacted you as in the other role?
Oh, that's a great question, Devin. And wanting to be transparent it's difficult. It really is, because what I had said earlier is the days where I've exhausted all of my patience at school, then I'm not a very good dad. And I'll admit that. But I'm fortunate that my wife is on her A game during the times where I'm failing. So I get where you're going, but man, that's so tough. There's some times where I love my job as a dad and I need to do a better job with it. But sometimes I think that I spend too much time on the job that shouldn't matter as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I have a struggle with that. And that's almost on a monthly basis where you're just like, man, I need to do something so I can be better at the number one job I need to be better at. And and that's pretty real talk. That's not, all unicorn and rainbows type of stuff, but there it is. It's out there.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we were just talking about that. Devin mentioned, it's just nice to be home now after the season's over. And, I had school board meeting last night somewhere else, or school board meeting 2 nights ago, somewhere else last night. There's just one thing after another, and you do have to build in that time for balance.
Yeah, and knowing you two guys, I mean, you don't want to say no.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe that's the lesson is sometimes we just have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, we have come to the end of that part. So Tim, we're gonna do a little bit of sharing. Can you stick around for a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So anything you want to share, somebody to follow, a blog post or anything like that. We'll give you a couple minutes here to think of one. I will. I think I just retweeted it before the show from the Dad's Ed account. Our friends over at Maker Dads with best show that ended early with Joe Mazza because I can't click the right buttons. They're starting a YouTube channel over at Maker Dads. I think tomorrow night about this time they're going to be on. So be sure to check that out. Not sure what it all has planned in store. But if you haven't followed Maker Dads, it's at Maker Dads. He has been doing just some phenomenal workshops at schools, going out and doing 2-day workshops, having parent nights and stuff like that. So some good stuff. So make sure to give them a follow on Twitter. Devin.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to share a tool tonight, which I typically don't do, but it's one I saw and it was just new to me. I don't think it's new overall, but it was something I saw called Prism, and Prism allows for kind of like collaborative highlighting, right? So if you have a piece of text and you've got multiple kids out there looking at the same piece of text and highlighting, say, words they don't understand or most important phrases or whatever it is you want them to do, and as they highlight, the text changes shape, and kind of like how in a Wordle or in a word cloud, the most common words kind of get bigger. Same thing happens in the text. So it's kind of a nice, cool tool to use for some collaborative analysis of a text. And again, I don't think it's new, but it was new to me, and I thought it was really cool, so I'm going to share it.
Yeah. I had not heard of that, and I was not expecting you to share a tool.
I know. I typically don't.
Turning over a new leaf, huh?
Yes.
Tim, do we stall enough for you?
Yeah, that's tough, guys. I'm not gonna. Okay, here's what I'll share, and maybe it's a challenge, is what I'm going to share. There are a lot of shout outs, obviously, but I was in church this last Sunday and listening intently to the sermon, and he was bringing up social media and technology and how unfortunately how sometimes we feel that and we see that kids have a more relationship with a screen rather than the human interaction. So I guess my share would be a challenge of, look at how we are connecting right now, guys, and we connected through a screen, probably through social media, right? Your Twitter or your Instagram or your Facebook. But I guess I encourage and challenge you to take that to the next level and get that personal connection rather than that screen connection, to build those relationships and network. And the shout out, of course, to Taylor Siebert. I know with Class Intercom, with what he's doing on getting kids engaged in social media and sharing stories, which I love, and I promote his product like crazy. But I know Taylor is also wanting to say, hey, start there with social media to make connections, but take it to the next level and make it personal and practice those soft skills and connect, because those are the soft skills that you are needing if you want to be successful.
That is a fantastic way to close the show.
That is. Well done.
All right, Tim, thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Keep crushing it.
All right. We will see everybody in 2 weeks.